Well, Razorback fans, it is officially portal season. Arkansas may have lost some guys, but there are some guys that are staying put. So let's talk about all of it on today's Locked On Razorbacks podcast.
You are Locked On Razorbacks, your daily podcast on the Arkansas Razorbacks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome into the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. I am your host, John Nabors. I am also the host of Out of Bounds. You can catch every weekday afternoon from 1 to 4 on 103.7 The Buzz and 103.7thebuzz.com. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use promo code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Hope everybody's having a wonderful Tuesday, and we'll talk a little bit about Razorback basketball getting a victory here in just a little bit. But we do know that football season is still, in a way, very important and very much on Razorback fans' minds because it is officially portal season, where we know about some players that will be moving on from Arkansas, some players that will be coming into Arkansas, and some players that are staying put, which is just, first off, before we get into it, it's amazing to me how you have players have to announce on social media that they're staying at the school that they're at to just take out all the speculation. It's so weird where nowadays it's like every player has to have some sort of response, some sort of statement about whether or not they're going or staying or whatever. I don't know. I just thought it was really funny. But either way, Arkansas had a few players that did officially announce that they were heading into the transfer portal, not only today, but from over the weekend as well. So I think without question, the biggest one, let's just go through all of the ones that we've been seeing and talking about, and we'll go through the ones that are officially in the portal, shall we? Let's just do that because the portals technically did not open until Monday, so there's still some players that could end up being in there, and there was some players that already mentioned it as far as entering into it, but just because it wasn't official, we'll just go through it all. So without question, the biggest name, I believe, today that entered into the portal that we did not know before was running back A.J. Green. Now, A.J. Green enters into the transfer portal. He put up a statement on social media. Just, again, this is what they do. And, of course, by entering into the portal itself, it is, pretty fascinating to see how they say things and, if they end up saying anything of note. But A.J. Green did say, first and foremost, I want to thank God and give him the utmost glory for providing me the privilege of following my dreams and protecting me thus far. I also want to thank the staff for their time and all the brothers that I have made during my time at the University of Arkansas. The bonds that I have made with you are all bonds that I will cherish forever. Psalm 32:8, the Lord says, I will instruct you and teach you in the way you should go. I will counsel you with my eye upon you. So with that being said, I feel as though that there is more that God has in store for me. Therefore, I've decided to enter my name into the transfer portal with 1 year of eligibility remaining. So that was A.J. Green officially making that clear. Also, Devin Manuel, the offensive lineman that battled injury this year for Arkansas. Felt like that he heard good things about him. Felt like that he was at some point going to get out there and play, but just could never find the field because of his injuries and whatnot. He is officially entered into the portal. We know Sam Mbake entered into the portal. Torian Carter was another one, the defensive lineman, who has officially entered into the portal, which I was kind of stunned because I thought for some reason he was already out of eligibility because it feels like he's been here a long time. But he's officially entered into the portal. And then we know Manny Powell, the linebacker, Jordan Crook, the linebacker, Chris Paul, the linebacker. So you had three linebackers that entered into the transfer portal from Arkansas. And Jalen Lewis, also the cornerback, who officially entered into the portal. So that really sums up, at least at the time of the recording of this podcast, who is going to be entering into the transfer portal, who has entered into the transfer portal from Arkansas. Now, I'm going to go and say this just like I did last year, folks. If you remember listening or watching my podcast last year, one of the things that I really hammered home was when Arkansas had pretty mass exodus of players. I was like, let's see how this plays out before we freak out. Let's see if they lose some players that you wanted to keep, who are the ones that return or who are the ones that they get? Because in some cases, you end up upgrading out of the defensive or offensive players than what you did the previous year based on the portal. You may lose somebody, but then you may get somebody better. Now, obviously, going 4-8 is not going to really hammer that point home that Arkansas did get a lot of players that were better. But I think that if you just take away the offensive side of things, but look at the defensive side of things, I think there's no question that Arkansas definitely upgraded pretty much at every position on the defensive side of the ball. The only one that you could maybe make the argument for was not having someone to replace Drew Sanders, who was so good for you last year. But there's no doubt that the defensive line got severely upgraded because of what you were able to do in the portal. The secondary 100% did. I remember Jalen Catalon was one of those big losses, which, by the way, he's back in the transfer portal after leaving Texas from 1 year. So wouldn't that be a story? But, you upgraded in the secondary. You upgraded in the D-line. I think that you did a good job of maintaining and keeping a lot of the players that you wanted to keep. But a lot of times it's just how it works out. And it's just the modern day of college football. I mean, for crying out loud, folks, like Dylan Gabriel of Oklahoma entered into the transfer portal. The dude had an incredible season as at Oklahoma. He entered into the portal. The kid from the starting quarterback from Ohio State, who was so good this past year, and he's entered into the portal. The starter has entered into the portal. So you just never know. You never know what it's going to be about or what it's going to look like when it comes to the transfer portal in general. But that's what it's looking like. Now, I think that of all these players that you end up losing, I think Chris Paul, without question, is the biggest loss. He was a guy who was really good when he was able to stay healthy and on the field. And, we've already talked about that. But I also think A.J. Green is an interesting one because I feel like the potential was always there. He was a 4-star player coming out of high school, and he stuck with Arkansas. I was honestly surprised that he stuck with Arkansas 3 years, just because we know how players are when they don't get a lot of the playing time. Rocket Sanders was the guy that got the vast majority of the playing time. And so seeing A.J. Green kind of play second fiddle to that, even Rashad Dabinian ended up surpassing him at times too. I was just surprised he made it this far. But, he's entering into the portal, wishing and all these guys the best of luck. I have no ill will or any problems with them entering into the portal. Some of them you'd like to see stay. Some of them, you'll see and what they end up doing. But I wish nothing but the best for all of these players and what they're going to end up doing. But here's another thing, too, that may be just as important. That those are the players that left. But some players, as we already mentioned, said they're staying. And they're staying put. And I think that that's always a cool thing to see some of them, and at least how they post and some of the things they do on social media. Like, for instance, we talked about Luke Haas. He was the tight end that was a freshman, so good. We saw all the potential. He got hurt with a season-ending injury. We know last week he mentioned that he's staying at Arkansas. Well, Ty Washington also, the guy that also had an injury and seemed really good when he was on the field, he announced he's staying, where he simply said, what's the saying? Oh, yeah, go Hogs, baby. Letting everybody know that he is staying at Arkansas. So that was awesome to see. Particularly, a few of those players. Cameron Ball was another one, the defensive lineman, who came out and said, "Woo pig, baby, not going anywhere." So that's a good get, and that's a good thing to have Arkansas and getting them to come back. So yeah, just a few of them. I've already said that they're officially coming back, which I feel like is very important. So it's still a fluid situation. We're still going to see some wild stuff here in the next few days, especially. But the biggest question is going to come down to when it comes to these transfer portals. What does KJ Jefferson do? Like, that's the biggest question mark. It was announced that he was entering into the portal, and then he wasn't. Like, it was just very strange. Reports said that he was going in there, but then he went on social media and said, I'm not going anywhere, or haven't made my decision yet, I should say. So that one's kind of a weird thing of like, okay, well, somebody reported that for some reason, so why was it that reason? When are you going to make your decision? Like, what are you waiting on? That's the biggest one that we got to wait on and see. Another interesting one, and I'm not saying that he would be more apt to go, but definitely Rocket Sanders. Rocket Sanders, to me, is a guy who we know potentially how much he can do and how great he can be. But there was no doubt because of injury and because of just everything in the offensive side of things, I want to erase from last year. I want to give everybody a fresh start that's staying on to the team. And what I mean by that is, like, if with Petrino's coming in, and he looks at Rocket Sanders, he's like, I want Rocket Sanders to stay, even though Rocket didn't have a great year last year. Him saying that is like, okay, I'm going to give some props to that because I know that Petrino's not going to keep somebody that doesn't see value in. So it's like, but I don't want to think about last year, like, oh, but he was so bad last year. And like, no, erase all that. Same thing with the offensive line. If they decide to keep some of these guys, or just one or two of these guys, I know Josh Braun is definitely one of those guys that's staying. And he's even met with Petrino, and there's a really good relationship there. And, of course, Eric Mateos being the next guy. If they feel like he's a good guy to keep, then let's keep him and let's see. Again, everybody gets a fresh start that gets the opportunity to stay. That's what's important. So I like it. I like where they're at right now. We'll see what the big decisions come. But as far as the offense goes, the biggest players that I wanted to keep was Luke Has and Rocket Sanders. Those were the biggest ones. And KJ, again, I don't think he'll stay, but I wouldn't mind it if he did. That's where everything's been out right now, so can't wait to see how it plays out in the next few days. It's going to be exciting. I'm going to try to keep everybody updated as much as possible because what's funny, by the time you listen to this podcast, for all I know, there's going to be a plethora of guys that entered into the portal that was shocking, or guys that committed to Arkansas that was pretty shocking too. But here's the thing, and before we go to the basketball side of things, I will say that KJ Jefferson has a decision to make, and if he makes the decision to move on from Arkansas, whether the transfer or go to the NFL or whatever it is, there is plenty of quarterback talent in the transfer portal right now. Not saying that all of them would be interested in coming to Arkansas. I'm not saying that. I don't know if any of them would be. But I am saying that if they decide to go with that decision and move on, I don't think Petrino would have very much issue going into that portal and getting somebody to come in. There's going to be options there. We'll just see if Arkansas can make it happen for them. We'll talk about some Razorback basketball and getting a very high-scoring but tough, gritty win here in just a segment. First, folks, I got to tell you about Gametime. You should never have to worry about anything when you're buying tickets to your next big event. And that's why Gametime is the fastest, easy way to buy all your tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater events that are near you. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and the best price guarantee, Gametime takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. And you can see the view before you buy with the seats that you're going to get. And you know what the all-in prices are going to be. That's showing the total up front, so there's no hidden fees or anything like that at the very end. And you buy tickets within seconds with just 2 taps. It is that easy. So you got to check them out today. No matter what the sporting event is or the concert or anything, Gametime is the place to do it. And you got to take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. So download the Gametime app, create an account, and use promo code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCollege. That's LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed.
You are Locked On Razorbacks, your daily podcast on the Arkansas Razorbacks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, so moving on into the next segment of the Locked On Razorbacks podcast, I wanted to see what Razorback basketball would do following up their game against Duke last week. And we know how that game was awesome. The atmosphere was great. It was a must-win, big win for Arkansas. So it was going to be really curious to see if they could ride some of that momentum and be able to take care of business against a Furman team, which don't ever look at the name on the jerseys or anything like that to know a lot of these teams. Folks, this past weekend, a lot of quality teams, top 25 teams, lost to some directional schools. It happens. It shouldn't. You don't want it to, but it happens. So Arkansas needed to make sure they focused in on this game against Furman. Furman, who beat Virginia last year in the NCAA tournament, for those of you who remember, and has actually they actually beat Louisville last season too, and L. Ellis was there, so I know he was motivated by it. But you can't take it for granted. And Arkansas was able to get the victory, though, in a very high-scoring affair, 97-83. Without question, the highest point total that has been had in Arkansas so far this year between both teams. In fact, I saw Hogs stats put out a tweet that said that Eric Musselman had lost 13 straight games when they gave up 83 points. Well, they remedied that because Arkansas was able to get it, which I'm so glad for because I had the over at 158.5, nailed that one. It's a little scary at the end for minus 11.5 for me, but I nailed that one too. So Arkansas was able to get the job done, winning by 14 points, and just a stellar offensive performance by Arkansas. They shot 61% from the field. 61% from the field, 42% from three-point land, 71% from the free throw line. Of course, Caleb Battle led the way in scoring, as he's just a dude that comes off the bench and gets buckets. 25 points for him. 7 of 11 from the field, 4 of 7 from 3, 7 of 8 from the free throw line. So really great offensive game and shooting performance out of him. And also, how about Chandler Lawson, the Claw, as they call him? 19 points for him. He goes 8 of 10 from the field, hits a 3, does get 3 rebounds, 1 assist, and I believe he had 3 block shots once again in this game. So That's all he does is get block shots. So he had a great game too. Jordan Brazil gets 13 points out of him for 5 of 8 from the field, 2 of 3 from three-point land. Pretty efficient in 28 minutes of play. Got 4 rebounds. But also shout out to Devo Davis. Devo Davis was the only player that got to double-digit rebounds, really even close. He got 10 rebounds in this game. He had 7 points, 10 rebounds, and 8 assists. How about that from Devo frickin' Davis? Like, you never really know exactly like what's going to happen with him as far as, point total. Sometimes he'll go out there. He can score 20 points if he needs to. Sometimes he'll have no points out there, but there's some sort of stat line. There's something that he's going to be able to do to really get something going there. And without question, having 10 rebounds and 8 assists is pretty dadgum impressive. Pretty impressive. And you know what's even more impressive when you add all that together? 0 turnovers for Devo Davis. Arkansas did turn the ball over 11 times, which was tied actually with Furman. But just a great performance offensively from Arkansas. Defensively, obviously struggled a little bit. Furman went 12 of 32 from three-point land. And they hit 12 threes in this game. And I believe at the time they opened up the game hitting 5 of their first 6. So they were just killing it from three-point land. But how wild is that? They score 83 points. 83 points and shot 38% from the field. That's crazy to me. I know that, points can be had in different ways, and they went 15 of 20 from the free throw line. Arkansas went 15 of 21, so pretty even there. But the fact that they were able to get 83 points by shooting 38% from the field is a wild one. In fact, they missed a lot of layups. They were really good from the three-point line, but missed a lot of layups overall. So, they were a pesky team, and they did a lot of good things. Arkansas did out-rebound them 38-35, which was good. And, you still see some, another thing, too, I want to give a shout-out. And it's always tough it was good to see Tremont Mark back in, which was awesome. After that scary injury, good to see him get some minutes. Got 26 minutes. Did have 4 turnovers, but did have 7 points into the mix. So he'll get back into it. So it was just good to see. But how about Layden Blocker, guys? Layden Blocker is true freshman. I am so glad I've been wrong about Layden Blocker. I didn't know how much he would play this year because I didn't know where he would fit in because they had so many great guards that were coming in. But the true freshman, Layden Blocker, has 9 points in this game, 4 or 5 from the field, has 5 rebounds, 5 assists, 3 block shots. That's incredible. Plus 17 is what he had. Now, free throws 1 of 4. He's got to get better at that. But for a true freshman to come in and get 9 points, 5 rebounds, 5 assists, 3 block shots, and 1 turnover, and 23 minutes of play is awesome. So I've been really impressed by Layden Blocker, and hopefully he continues to impress because he's been a lot of fun to watch. And again, I'm so glad that I was wrong about his amount of playing time because he's definitely earned it, and we want to see more out of it. That is for sure. All right, so some decorations, accolades, I don't know what you want to call them. Some accomplishments were had by some Razorback football players that may be surprising you. So we'll talk about that in a second. But first, folks, got to tell you about LinkedIn. When you're hiring for your small business, you want to have as many top-tier candidates as possible to interview. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help you find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn just is another job board. LinkedIn has a vast network of more than 1 billion professionals, which makes it the best place to hire. Hiring is easy when you have that many qualified candidates. So easy, in fact, that with 86% of the small businesses to get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. LinkedIn knows that small businesses are wearing so many hats and may not have time to have the resources to hire. That's why LinkedIn, thankfully, is able to have the process that's intuitive, quick, and easy. So post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions do apply.
You are Locked On Razorbacks, your daily podcast on the Arkansas Razorbacks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, so final segment here on the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. A couple of Razorback football players did get some accolades in the All-SEC team. And some of you are probably sitting there like, what? Who? Who would have gotten accolades this year? Well, this may surprise you, folks. This is according to the Associated Press, which we'll see what the coaches poll also says. But here it is. You got, of course, Landon Jackson. I don't think that one's a surprise. Landon Jackson was named to the All-SEC second team, and it was the first All-SEC player that was transferred from a different school, from a different SEC school coming into Arkansas. Other than, of course, we know last year Drew Sanders, being able to make that accolade. But he was, Landon Jackson led the Razorbacks with 13.5 tackles for loss, 6.5 sacks, had 44 tackles this year, and was even defensive lineman of the week after the game against Alabama. So he was really good. And we're going to see what he ends up doing. I'm surprised, honestly, he hasn't declared for the NFL draft just yet. I just assume that's happening. Would love to have him back. But I just going to go ahead and go out on a limb and assume that he is going to go ahead and move on with that. But the other player that may be surprising to some of you is actually a player we've already mentioned in today's podcast. Offensive guard Joshua Braun. He was named to the All-SEC second team. Braun recorded, it's according to hogsports.com, Braun recorded an offensive grade of 71.3, according to Pro Football Focus. While primarily playing on the right side of the Razorbacks offensive line, he had a pass protection grade of 79 and a run blocking grade of 68.5. He was also at an overall grade of 39th in the country among players in his position and 7th in the SEC. So I know that people brought up the offensive line and how terrible it was this past year and how much it struggled, which it did, 100%. But that doesn't mean that there can't be at least one player, in this case Josh Braun, who ended up being actually better than what the record showed. I'm not going to try to sit here and sugarcoat it and say that he's All-American or that he's the greatest offensive lineman of all time, but it does show you that there is at least a guy that was doing his job, maybe not effectively as much as everybody sees, because offensive line's a tough thing too, where, if they give up a lot of sacks, the whole offensive line looks bad. Even though one offensive lineman may be doing his job every single time, if they're not having the success to go along with it, people are going to get frustrated just assuming the whole offensive line is bad. But Joshua Braun ended up getting all SEC second team alongside Landon Jackson. So kudos to them and congratulations to them. I know Josh Braun's coming back next year for sure, but I would love to see Landon Jackson coming back too. But just wanted to pass that along and show that Arkansas did get some accolades, did get some guys, one on offense and one on defense when it came to the postseason All-SEC team. Well, appreciate everybody listening in the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. Be sure to like and subscribe to the podcast on iTunes or on Google Play. You can also get after me on Twitter, BuzzJohnNabors, for any questions, comments, concerns that you may have. We'll keep it going from there. Same podcast time, same podcast channel tomorrow afternoon. Have a great day, everybody. We'll see you then.